You've spent months and months or even multiple years and you want to buy your first property and you want to make sure that you buy it right and you make a good investment and you're happy where you live. In today's video, I'm going to give you guys a complete tutorial, A to Z, 10 steps from beginning to purchase till after purchase so you understand everything that's involved in buying your first home. My name is Jankowitz. I am a real estate agent based in Cambridge and Somerville, Massachusetts. I have closed over 300 transactions in the last 3 years, and I'm here today to talk to you guys all about buying your first property. Before I get into the video, please take a second to hit that subscribe button, like and comment below. If you have questions while you're watching this video, there's a Calendly link in the description below, so make sure you click that. I'm happy to set up a free appointment to answer any questions you guys might have. And without further ado, let's get right into it. The very first step that I always recommend to clients is to get a pre-approval letter, or at least talk with a loan officer to understand what you can afford. A pre-approval letter is a letter from usually a bank that will say, this is how much us as a bank is willing to loan you as a person based on your income, based on your credit score, based on your employment situation, based on your assets and debts. So they're going to look at all those things and say, this is your absolute ceiling for how much we're comfortable lending to you. Now, something to understand here is that if a bank says they'll loan you $1.5 million, that doesn't mean you should necessarily go out and buy a $1.5 million house. In fact, I always tell my clients, wherever that absolute ceiling is, you want to go much lower than that, because the banks are often willing to push a lot more than what is comfortable for most people's budgets and what I think is a responsible thing to do. But that's the first step. You need that pre-approval because you need to really get an understanding of where you're at. I have had situations in the past where I've worked with clients for months or even years looking for the perfect home. We find that perfect home. They do not have a pre-approval in hand, or their financial situation changed. We go to put in an offer. We go to the loan officer. We ask for that pre-approval. Turns out they can't afford it. The bank will not loan them that amount of money. So you don't want to be that person. You want to get ahead of the curve because you're about to go on a journey that's going to take many months and most likely dozens and dozens of showings. So you want to make sure that you're prepared from the onset. Step 2. This is one that I think a lot of people actually skip, but I think it's totally worth taking the time to do it right. And that's to sit down and actually make a budget. And everyone has a different threshold for what they're comfortable with. Here's what I would recommend. But again, everyone has different financial situations, and I'm happy to talk through things with you depending on your unique situation. But what I would say is you want to have, first of all, 6 months of savings. So you really should go back your last 3 months or so, look at your last 3 bank statements, get a feel for how much you're spending on a monthly basis. Make sure you have 6 months of savings stocked away in a savings account that you will always have. And this is just going to stay there. This is not towards buying the home. That's your safety net. You want to have that to really protect yourself. Once you have that, the next thing that you're going to want to have is the down payment. I recommend to all my clients, aim for at least 20%. We can occasionally get away with less than 20%, and we can talk through your situation. And I have one offers for clients with less than 20%, but you're going to be in a much stronger position if you aim for 20%. If you start looking at houses and you say, okay, I want an $800,000 condo, you really want to have about 160 grand for that down payment in cash or in some very safe investment vehicle that is relatively liquid that you can pull out very quickly. Once you have that one, then you want to make sure that you have some extra cash around to cover the additional expenses that come up. And there's not that many of them, but a few of them. You may have the chance to do a home inspection. It depends on the market when you're watching this video. A lot of times you can't, but if you can get an inspection or a pre-inspection, you're probably spending between about $500 and $1,000 per an inspection. If you have to have multiple inspections, it could add up. So you want to have a few $1,000s for the home inspection. You also will need to pay for a real estate attorney. Guesstimate about $600 to $1,200 for a real estate attorney to help represent you on the legal aspect of this transaction. You need to do that. So all told, you want to have a few $1,000s stowed away between the home inspection and the real estate attorney. And then the final thing is you're going to have closing costs. Most people forget about this, but roughly it's about 1% of the purchase price. If you're buying $1 million home, roughly it's going to be an additional $10,000 that you're going to have to pay at the closing table for various things. And it's another video where we'll get into all those specifics, but that's just the other piece. Once you have all those things complete, you're basically in a position where you're ready to roll. Now, there's nothing wrong with starting the search earlier than that, but if you don't have those pieces in place, just understand that you're not really in a place where you can put in an offer, get it accepted, and actually buy a house. So my advice is get those ducks in a row before you start looking more seriously. Number 3, next up is your search parameters. It's really important early on to try and define what your search looks like. I will add a caveat. It's very common that people start with one set of search terms, and then as they start looking at things and seeing what things cost and what they actually close for, that the search changes over time. But I think it's good to have a couple search parameters. You know your max budget conservatively by this point, so you should have a price parameter on your search. Most of my clients will have a minimum bedroom and bathroom on their search. And I also recommend trying to limit your location, ideally to 1, maybe 2, no more than 3 towns. But really, ideally 1 or 2 is a really good place to be. And the reason why is I have seen clients who cast such a wide net that they're looking all over the place and they end up spending a year plus kind of in a whirlwind, not really knowing what they want. And they're not really learning the market. By focusing in, honing in on 1 or 2 places and kind of a particular property type, whether it's a condo, single, or multi, and kind of understanding, okay, we want a condo in Somerville up to $1 million with at least 3 bedrooms and at least 1 parking spot. If you have something like that, you're going to start seeing the same inventory in a zone from a price point perspective over and over again. You're going to see where they close and you're going to start educating yourself so you can make a confident decision in the future. If you're all over the place, it becomes much, much more challenging. So you don't want to be too wide, but on the flip side, you don't want to be too narrow. If you get too narrow and you get into a situation where you have 15 parameters, and I have had clients like this in the past, what tends to happen is almost nothing comes up. And when it does, they find something else wrong with it, or they lose out on the offer and then they wait another 6 months. And generally, when you do that, you're probably not going to get a home for a while, multiple years, if I'm being honest. Like, you never know, but it's going to be really challenging. So you kind of have to straddle that line between being specific enough, but not being so specific that you're really not having any results to work with. Step forward. So at this point, you have your financial ducks in a row. You have a feel for your search situation. You've got the pre-approval. You're ready to go. So this is a good point now to really start to hit the ground running with the realtor you're working with. And so I always set up a search for my clients so that every single morning, anything new that comes up will arrive in my client's inbox. I encourage clients to look on their own. I look every single day for every single one of my clients as well, and I'll send them things that look kind of intriguing to me. So we got to get this search set up so you're getting results in a timely fashion. The second piece with the search is we need to make an effort to get in as quickly as possible. Now, you can't drive yourself crazy. You're going to have all kinds of things going on in your life. You're going to have jobs and family stuff and personal stuff and health stuff and all of that. I advocate don't go nuts, but if you can get in early, especially for properties you really like, try and do that. When you can get in early to a property, you're building a little extra time. Properties generally come in on a Monday or Tuesday. They'll filter throughout the week, but the vast majority come in at the early side of the week on Monday, Tuesday. Usually there's open houses on Saturday and Sunday, and then the offer deadline, if there is one, is a Monday or Tuesday. So if you can get it on a Saturday, that might give you all Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to get your financial ducks in a row, to get maybe a pre-inspection in there, to do homework around condo docs. So getting in early will save you a lot of time that you have to do your due diligence. If you wait till the last second, you're going to have a couple hours to make a really important decision. That's not a good place to be. So it's really important you get yourself in. The other thing with the search is, usually when I start with the searches, it's very common a client will ask me, Sage, how long should we be searching for? This is a really difficult question because it's a very personal decision. Buying a house in some ways is almost like dating. You need to feel really good about it. I have clients within a couple months, they kind of feel like they have a good feeling of what they want and where they want to be, and they can pull a trigger relatively quickly. I have other clients where they're extremely analytical. They need to take their time and they may have to see hundreds of properties and take multiple years. I personally don't care. I'm just doing my job and I'm going to work with everyone wherever they are and whatever their timeline is. So my advice would be wait until it feels right. If you're feeling on the fence, sleep on it. If you're still feeling on the fence the next day, it's a no. You need to feel really good about buying your property when you're doing your search. Part 5, evaluation of the property. This is where a good realtor is going to earn you a lot of money and help you dodge a lot of big, stressful bullets. Sometimes the properties that you ultimately choose to skip over are the ones that will save you the most in the long run. And sometimes we can identify a property that a lot of other realtors or buyers might miss. And so there's a couple parts of property evaluation, right? The first is the physical condition of the house, the roof, the mechanical systems like heating and cooling, the electrical, the plumbing, the siding, the foundation. These are all things that if they go wrong, they can be relatively expensive. So you want a realtor who has some understanding of how these things work, the age of systems, a rough idea of costs. Understand, however, that your realtor is not a general contractor for the most part. There are some realtors who have some construction background, but for the most part, they are not a GC. So it's really important to lean on specialists for specialized situations. I see a lot of realtors spouting a lot of information where they're not really sure. And so they can give you some good high-level information to help you understand if something should be eliminated or considered further. But if you're going to really do your due diligence, make sure you work with a specialist who's living and breathing on that particular thing every single day. If you have a roof issue, you want a roofer who's literally working on roofs all the time, not a realtor to give you the advice. But that's one piece where a realtor can help you, give you some initial advice, but then also connect you to those people who are trustworthy and good and high integrity. So the realtor realtor still plays an important role there. That's one thing, right? So you have the property piece. The next up is you have transaction issues. So these are things that could come up during the transaction and create a bond. Some examples would be a special assessment coming, high HOA fees. It could be unreasonable requests by the seller or seller's agents. Maybe they're asking you to sign some document that is atypical. A realtor, through the sheer volume of doing many transactions, can help pick out these things that you should be avoiding. Another thing that a realtor can do is they can help you find diamonds in the rough. Sometimes there are properties that don't receive that much interest, but you as a realtor understand, whoa, this is actually a really good deal. And I can see why people might be missing this, but this is actually a little special part of town that people are missing. This actually has some really nice benefits that people are kind of overlooking. So your realtor can help you pick out on positives that other people might miss. So those are just like a few of the things, but understand that basically what a realtor is doing is they're constantly, through their sheer volume, helping you understand things to avoid and things to focus on to help you make a good buying decision. Thanks for watching so far. If you guys like what you're seeing, please subscribe, please hit that like button. And if you have any questions about anything throughout the process, make sure you hit that Calendly link below. We can set up a quick 15-minute appointment. I'm happy to answer any questions, whatever it might be. Now let's get back into the video. Part 6, this is a really big one, the offer itself. This is the other big piece where a realtor really can save you thousands of dollars, lots of hours of time, and give you your best chance of success when the moment is right. And so what a real estate agent will do with the offer, there's multiple pieces to this. The first thing that a good realtor should do, in my opinion, is they should be able to tell you, here's roughly what my estimation is as to the true market value of what this thing is worth. In today's current environment, here's what I think it is worth right now. The second thing that a realtor should be able to do here during the offer is they should tell you, here's what I think it's roughly worth, but here's where I think it will likely go. Here's the price point that I will think you have to be at to be competitive given your financial situation, and it will vary what that offer is, if it's a cash offer versus if it's a offer with a mortgage, which most are, but not all. From there, what are the must-have contingencies that you should include in this offer? For your particular situation, for this particular offer at this given time, what contingencies should be included in there? It may be an offer in a situation where you can put in many contingencies. You might be able to add 2-3 contingencies if the property's been sitting for 100 days or more. On the flip side, if it's a property that's been up for one weekend and there's 50 people going through the property, it may be very hard to win out with even one contingency. So the realtor will help guide you on sort of what contingencies can you realistically put in to win the offer and what contingencies should you put in to protect yourself. Because sometimes, even if that means there's a high chance you're going to lose an offer, it's better to do the right thing, add the contingency, play it safe, even if that means you're seriously reducing your chances of winning. The other thing that a realtor should be able to do during the offer is tell you sort of how rare is this property? Is this a property that you're going to find tomorrow and every week for the next couple months and there's just a lot of them out there? Or is this something special and unique and really hits a lot of parameters that you want that makes it a little special? In which case, maybe you're willing to go a little bit above and beyond in terms of the offer term. That's something that, again, a realtor can offer through the sheer volume of constantly seeing properties. They understand what is rare, what is normal, and what is just not even worth wasting your time with. The final thing that I'd say that a good realtor can do around this is they can help you understand some unspoken, unwritten, hidden things that are happening beneath the surface during the transaction. What's going on with this particular seller? What do we know about their situation? What is going on with this seller's agent? Do they have a history of underpricing? Do they have a history of overpricing? Are they a flexible negotiator or a rigid negotiator? Those will play in a factor in determining how we draw up the offer. So a good realtor is going to equip you with all these pieces of information, push it into your brain, and then you get to make the decision ultimately of what you feel comfortable with and what you want to do based on this information. Step 7, we have the accepted offer. Now what do we do? Now that we have the accepted offer, we have to realize any contingencies. So once an offer is accepted, we take an offer deposit, it goes in escrow, it's going to float there. If the deal falls apart, typically we'll go back to the buyer. If the deal comes together and closes, we'll go to the seller after closing. Before we get to the next step, which is the purchase and sale, which is the official contract that basically the buyer and seller are going to sign, if there are contingencies, those have to be taken care of. So a common contingency is an inspection contingency. If that happens, we need to have a home inspector come to the property, usually within a few days after an accepted offer, draw up the full inspection, we'll go over the report, and then depending on how that contingency was written, figure out how to proceed. Another thing that will happen before the P&S is signed is you need a real estate attorney. The real estate attorney is going to work with you to negotiate the purchase and sale terms and help advise you on anything else potentially around legal aspects of the particular transaction. So those pieces need to be realized prior to the P&S is signed. Once the purchase and sale is signed, the final step from the buyer side, final big step, I should say, there are some smaller things that I'm not going to get into for this video because otherwise it could be way too long. But the next next really big step in my mind is the final walkthrough. The final walkthrough happens typically the day of closing, and it's a chance for the realtor and the buyer to go through the entire property, look it over, understand, okay, is it in the same condition that was presented to us? If we go through the property and there's a giant 4-foot by 4-foot hole in the property, something went dramatically wrong. If there's a huge leak in the basement, that's a problem. If there's a fire in the backyard, or if all the seller stuff is still in the property, you have a problem. So it's basically just a check through to make sure that everything is being delivered as promised. If there are issues, they can be addressed, and I'm gonna save the specifics for another video, but just know that it's basically a final chance to make sure all is good. If all is good, we proceed on to the next step. Step 9, this is the closing. Now this is where we sign all the paperwork and ultimately the property becomes yours. What typically happens, you're gonna go to an attorney's office and you're gonna sign a lot of paperwork at a table. Your attorney's gonna explain what each of them are. It's kind of boring, honestly. It takes about 40 to 50 minutes. You sign all the papers, and a lot of people think they get the keys right after. That's not quite how it works. After you sign all the paperwork, you also bring typically a cashier's check with your final amount that you have to pay for closing. From there, the property will eventually go on record, which basically means officially the property is now yours. So if you go to a closing, usually it's in the morning, maybe 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. Usually it's some point in the afternoon, maybe 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We get an email from the attorney, you're on record. As soon as you're on record, we get a copy of the keys, the place is yours, the transaction is complete, and the whole process is basically over. But wait, there's one more step in the process, and that's step 10. And step 10 is the post-close. And so some realtors think that the job kind of ends when the closing's over. I don't really work that way. I really try and treat each client like it's a long-term relationship. I try not to be an annoying realtor who's constantly like, hey, what's up? Like, that's not really my vibe, but I try to let my clients know that if things come up, I'm there to help them. Because I'm constantly living and breathing with real estate stuff, new things come up after you buy a house and you may need help. You may need a vendor, an HVAC, maybe you want to redo the floors, maybe you need a fresh coat of paint, maybe you just need a handyman for a small job and you don't have a big budget. Whatever the situation is, I have clients reach out to me all the time and I try and help them, not to get paid anything, but just to help them because it's the right thing to do. So it's important to maintain that relationship with your realtor. You don't have to reach out all the time, but if something comes up, a good realtor should be there for you and stay on things as needed. So leverage that realtor because they should have good contacts if they've been in this business for a bit. Hopefully this video was helpful. I need to just add one more thing, which is a transaction can be very complicated. Every transaction is a little bit different. There's always unique things that come up. So this video is not all encompassing, but it's a good primer to get you a decent understanding of the flow of a deal. If you have specific questions about a transaction, if you have heard about other parts of a transaction, because there can be little rabbit holes we can go down, set up a Calendly, links in the description below. And if you guys like what you're seeing, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time.